Hey guys, I'm going to try something new here. I had a really interesting game come up that I wanted to review on YouTube. Talk about some of the plays I made that I thought were really strong, and take a look at some plays I made that I thought were big mistakes. So here's the deck. This is game 2 of match 3. You're currently 5-0 up a game. I don't remember what sideboarding choices we made, but as you can see, a fairly strong vampire deck overall, with some good removal in bindings and interdiction and vanquish, and some strong vampire synergies with the conquistadors and the deacons. So let's go ahead and get down to the game here. I think if I just do these little clicks here, yeah. So a nice little starting hand for us. Pretty good. A couple 2-drops, 3 in Queen's Commission, Mark of the Vampire with the Danto Vanguard, so can't really be too mad there. And we'll start to just fast forward through each turn. Forest for our opponent. We go ahead and drop a plains and pass over to them. They go Island, Ixali's Diviner. They reveal a 1 with the wind. I assume we're just going to drop a Bishop Soldier, because right now our Danto Vanguard on 2 doesn't actually do a whole lot, right? So we could play Vanguard on 2, but against the Ixali's Diviner as a 1/4, it's not really doing much, whereas with what they currently have in play, we can at least bounce the Bishop Soldier off the Diviner when we attack next turn and gain 2. So based on the information I have in play, I think Bishop Soldier is a much better card to play, and then I think I should be playing Vanguard next, following up with Mark of the Vampire and using this powerful synergy. Opponent plays 3 lands and plays Blossom Dryad, so I'm going to assume that I play land and that I go to attack, offering the trade with Soldier and Dryad. See what our opponent does. And I'm pretty sure I make a mistake here and misclick. I intend to cast Emissary of Sunrise. Our opponent doesn't block, which is great. We get in for 2 free points of damage. They choose to not block with Diviner, and they choose to not trade with Blossom Dryad, letting me know that they want to ramp. And I think I just misclick here and I cast Queen's Commission rather than casting Emissary. Oh no, I cast Vanguard. Okay, great. So my plan here is Vanguard and then Mark of the Vampire. So still on that plan here. Our opponent goes land, tap, counter on Diviner with New Horizons, but they do not play 1 with the wind. They now have a pretty amazing untapped synergy with Blossom Dryad and New Horizons. So we draw land. I'm a little nervous, I think, here, but I don't remember if I just went for the Mark of the Vampire play. No, I didn't. So I think with the open man, I was a little nervous about dropping Mark of the Vampire, the fact that they didn't have 1 with the wind. But I wonder what I'm afraid of here. It's got to be some sort of bounce, like Run Aground or Depths, because we can remember our opponent does have 4 mana of any color basically available to them. But bounce is going to get me anyway, so I think I might as well just do it here. And then this is the turn where I do make a mistake. I opt for a more conservative line here to play a 3-drop. Meant to play Emissary of Sunrise, certainly not Queen's Commission, but I dropped the commission down anyway, and so it goes. I don't believe we're attacking with anything, so that was a mistake on many fronts, I think. I think I probably should have just played Mark of the Vampire there. Like, I don't get got by a removal spell because a Danto Vanguard can just become indestructible, and I don't get got by bounce because I'm going to get got by bounce anyway, right? Let's see what our opponent elects to do. They play Shapers of Nature. Now, that card is a real problem to deal with because the way it matches up with Vanquish the Weak is really tough. I have to basically vanquish it in response to them putting a counter on it rather than vice versa, because they can always make it bigger than 3 power when I go to try and destroy it. So I don't go for a land here. I think I might go for the attack. No, I don't even go for Costly Plunder. I wonder if I'm playing around some sort of counter spell. So I just go land pass, and our opponent smartly does not go for a pump here. So it lets me know that they're aware that they could be blown out by Vanquish the Weak here. And now the game gets interesting as they drop a 2nd Blossom Dryad, still with 5 mana available. No attacks. I go for Costly Plunder, end of turn, sacrifice a Vampire. Not getting better. Legion Conquistador is pretty good. Drawing a second one, pretty bad. We do still have one left in the deck. And this, I think, is another misplay because it sort of telegraphs what I have. I think I should just play Emissary of Sunrise and not worry about the 4% chance that I could draw my other Conquistador here. I think I should just play Emissary. But instead I opt for Conquistador. I'm sort of, I think, a little jarred about that I drew this one. But I think I should just be playing the Emissary out here. And then it sort of telegraphs that I have something up because I go to find the other Conquistador, but then I don't play it. Very, very fishy and very, very obvious what I have. And now I make the biggest mistake of the game, which is I want to go, so in response to my opponent tapping this 2 mana and going to untap the land with Blossom Dryad, I fire off my Vanquish the Weak. And what I really should be doing is waiting for them to be putting the counter with Shapers of Nature instead. Because, as you will see, we're going to get blown out by a River Herald's Boon. So they go counter on here, Vanquish the Weak bounces off, and Shapers of Nature is very quickly going to take over this game. My opponent even, I believe, chats at this moment. Phew, is what they say. My opponent says phew. So here we are for turn number 7 on our opponent's side. They've got all the mana in the world, New Horizons plus double Blossom Dryad, and they suit up Shapers of Nature with one with the Wind. And I have no way to deal with this other than, I believe, a copy of... Nope, nothing. Got 2 Ixalan's Bindings and a Pious Interdiction. But the Interdiction isn't really going to stop them from being able to use the 2 abilities. So I really am on trying to find one of my 2 bindings here. So they get in for 6. And I think it's now time to try and gain some life. So, oh, no, I guess it's not now time to gain some life. It's now time to play Emissary. Draw Queen Space Soldier, goes to the graveyard, play a Conquistador, and I guess pass. I think this is probably a turn to just drop the mark. Again, like, I'm not playing around anything, and I need to start gaining some life. So I think this was another mistake I made in this this game. I mean, Mark of the Vampire really should have been down turns ago, and this game would have been a lot different. Pirate's Prize, just more card advantage, more mana from our opponent. They pounce the Emissary on the Shapers of Nature. They untap. They untap. And now we're facing down a Prosperous Pirates, more mana from our opponent, more big butts on the board. They're getting in for 6 in the air, and it is looking very, very bleak for us. We draw a land, so I can double spell this turn. So I believe now is finally the turn where I'm going to go Mark of the Vampire on Adanto Vanguard. I get to swing in for at least gaining 1 point of life if they want to trade, but I think they opt to not even do that. I'm sort of surprised they don't Prosperous Pirates in front there. But they don't. Put down a Legion Conquistador and pass over to our opponent. Now here, they attack for 6 in the air. And this race is working out okay in our favor until we're going to have to pay life with the Adanto Vanguard. And now our opponent's hellbent. Everything on the table. They have access to 2, 4, 6, 7, 12 mana with their 2 Blossom Dryads and the New Horizons. So they can activate Shapers of Nature's top ability 3 times. Anointed Deacon number 2 is an incredible draw and really changes the calculus of this game. But I'm all in on this Adanto Vanguard regardless. So Anointed Deacon comes down. I'm going to pump up the Vanguard to what will now be a 7/3 when it attacks, lifelinking. And now I'll be gaining at least 3 life, and if they want to block with something, I'll pay the 4 and I gain 3, right? They elect, very shockingly, to not block, which I think is a big mistake from our opponent. I think they absolutely should be just throwing Prosperous Pirates in front, trading that off. I only gained 3, and they're winning the race handily with the Shapers of Nature in the air. Choose not to do it. Looks like they go ahead and Do they make some counters, or are we drawing cards here? Looks like we're going to be drawing a couple cards. No? We're making some counters? So they use a treasure here. They add a counter to... Oh no, they draw a card, and then draw a card. And they've just tapped a land, strangely. Okay, so they drew 2 cards, grabbed the 2 counters off the Exali's Diviner, which makes sense to me. Just refilling their hand. And now another Shapers of Nature. If only Exali's, if only I had drawn Ixalan's Binding, but we did not. So now they have 2 Shapers of Natures on board. So the activation is very, very important for us and very difficult for us to deal with. But I can't really worry about that right now. I've just got to worry about killing the flyer first and then figuring out the rest later. So they have, again, how many times can they activate Shapers of Nature? They have access to 2, 4, 6, 10, 15 total mana. They can do this 3 times. So go to click OK. And I just line up a bunch of blocks in front of 1 Prosperous Pirates. I think the additional Vampire token was pretty bad. And I should have been counting what that would have actually been, because now they don't have to do anything, and I lose my Vampire token really for no reason. But I gained 3, which is not irrelevant. But probably would have been better just to throw that Vampire token in front of this other Prosperous Pirates. But our opponent elects to, again, not put any counters anywhere. And then draw a card, post-combat. Draw a card, and pass. 3 cards in hand, 5 treasures, and just a measly land for us. So I'm going to go ahead and drop Deacon number 2, and now Adanto Vanguard is swinging in for 9. I think that's what I elect to do here. No, okay. So I'm now looking at them being at 6, right? And this is, I think, a pretty important decision that I make that I forgot that I did because I'm just reviewing this now. But I had a pretty strong handle on this game. So if this is swinging in for 5, and then these both swing in for 4, and they only have the option to put a counter on something, these Adanto Vanguards are going to be able to trade with whatever they block, which is not going to be the case if my opponent has a bunch of mana untapped. So it looks like I'm using the opportunity, keep hitting OK, using the opportunity to pump up 2 of my Conquistadors, and attack in with the Vanguard and the 2 Conquistadors that have been augmented here. So 5 mana, 4 mana, and 4 mana. Or 5 damage, 4 damage, and 4 damage, I should say. So a Diviner going in front, a Blossom Dryad going in front, and they're going to go to 2 here, which is really shocking. And now comes what I believe is the most shocking decision. So they play a land. And they play Dead-Eye Plunderers. And they don't attack. They don't attack here. Now, they can't attack, right, if they don't have another creature, because I have 5 creatures in play. They have 4 creatures in play. So what that lets me know is they do not have, I believe they do not have removal, and they do not have another creature. And now here comes the removal, and I believe they missed out on the 6 points of damage. So they're going to go ahead and fight a Deacon, which is really bad news for us. Call to the Feast. Very good draw for me, as it allows me to buy a little more time, maybe gain a little bit more life with Deacon, but still worried about this flyer. So we're going to go to attacks, make the Vanguard a 7-power lifelinker, get it into the red zone, because even if they block with Plunderers, it's a life-positive trade for me in that I will be gaining 3 total life after paying 4 to gain 7. My opponent puts the Dead-Eye Plunderers in front. Makes a lot of sense to me. But they can now not sacrifice a treasure this turn, so that's somewhat relevant. We drop the Call to the Feast, and how did they choose? They chose to do nothing with their mana. And they're just on draw card. So I have to imagine my opponent's pretty flooded. They cast Opt here, and they top. I'm not feeling good about this. They play a Grazing Whiptail. And here is the biggest error of the game that my opponent makes, is that they choose to attack this turn, and based on what they've told me before is that they probably don't have anything. So they attack for 5 here. And I don't know if you can see it because my opponent didn't, but we have lethal. If they have nothing, right? So these 4 creatures are already lethal. If we put a counter on a vampire token, or if we put the Anointed Deacon trigger on a vampire token, that's going to be +2/+0. This will now be lethal. And that's 5 lethal threats matched up against 5 creatures, and what's left over is 2 1/1s. So if they block all 5 of our lethal threats, and we have our 2 1/1s left over, those 2 1/1s get in, and we hit our opponent for Xaxes. I believe they missed this, and I decided I got 2 lands in hand. I'm not going to beat these 2 Shapers of Nature, this Deadeye Plunderers, in the long game, so if my opponent made a mistake here, I got to try and capitalize on it. So I send everything into the red zone. And I believe my opponent typed some expletive that got bleeped out, because I believe they missed it. So they line up the blocks here. As you might think, they block all the lethal threats, but don't have a way to deal with the 2 1/1s. And I eked out a win. So I think that game was really interesting, and I feel like there were a lot of decision points there. A lot of times when it felt like I was dead. I actually, even in reviewing it immediately when I thought about it, I didn't catch that I probably just should have dropped the Mark of the Vampire on the Vanguard on turn 4 when I was planning to do so. I think I leveled myself there, and I could have had a much easier time of winning this game. But as it sat, I was never counted myself out, even though I couldn't deal with the Shapers of Nature directly, and managed to race and come up with a W. So thanks for watching.